everyone, so we're going to start a new lesson today, and this lesson is all about polynomials. Polynomials are really similar to quadratics that we talked about in the last lesson, but they, instead of having the highest exponent as a 2 or squared, it can have any amount of exponents. The highest exponent can be 3, 4, 5, all the way up to infinity. And so for this first video, we're going to just talk about how to add and subtract polynomials, which is actually pretty easy because all we're going to be doing is combining like terms. And if you remember, like terms are the things that look the same, or in this case, we're going to talk about them as having the same exponent. So if I have two things with an x squared on them, those are considered like terms and I add them together. If I had two of the same things that just have x's on them, then those are considered like terms and I can add them together. So let's just start off with this first example, which is 5x cubed minus 2x plus 3x to the fourth plus 8x to the fourth plus x minus 5x cubed. And once again, this is as simple as combining like terms. Even though these are in two sets of different parentheses, because there's that plus in the middle, we're just combining like terms like we talked about. And so we can actually erase the parentheses if we want. They don't really change what we're going to be doing. So the first thing I'm going to do is find my like terms, and I'm going to underline them with different colors. You can choose to underline them different ways, like with squiggly lines or double lines or however you feel the most comfortable with. But I'm going to start with, I see that I have a 5x cubed right here. So another like term would be this negative 5x cubed. They're not like terms because they're both 5s, but they're like terms because they both have x cubed. Then let's do yellow, and we're going to do negative 2x, and the like term on that one is just this x right here because they both just have x's. There's no exponents attached to them. And then the last one we'll do in red is 3x to the fourth, and then the other thing with x to the fourth is 8x to the fourth. Okay, so now we know all of our like terms, we can add them together. And the way that I'm going to start with our x to the fourth, so the things we underlined in red, because we want to have our final answer be in what we call standard form, and standard form has the highest exponent come first. And so our highest exponent in this case is this x to the fourth, which means that I'm going to add those together first and put that at the front of my answer. So when I add 3x to the fourth and 8x to the fourth together, I'm not going to add the x to the fourth. X to the fourth stays there, but I do add the numbers in front, so 3 and 8. And 3 plus 8 gives me 11, which means that 3x to the fourth plus 8x to the fourth is 11x to the fourth. All right, cool. Now we have that. Let's go to the next highest exponent, which is the x cubed. So we have a 5x to the third power and then a negative 5x to the third power. We have to keep the signs on there, and we're going to combine them, which means that we'd have a 5 minus 5. Well, now 5 minus 5 is 0, which means that those two things actually cancel each other out. We could write, potentially, we could say like a plus 0x cubed, and that would make sense. But we don't need to because it has that 0 there. I'm just going to erase that and basically assume, or not even assume, but know that these x cubes cancel each other out because they're opposite signs. They're the same number but opposite signs, which zeroes them out. All right, and then the last section we're going to add together are the yellow ones, which just have one x. Those are the lowest exponent ones. So now we have a negative 2x plus x. On that one that just has an x, there's a little imaginary 1 right here that we don't ever really write, but you've got to think about it as having 1 in front of it so that when you add or combine like terms, it's associated with 1 instead of 0 or some other number. So we have a negative 2x and a positive 1x. When I add those together, I get negative 2 plus 1, which gives me a negative 1, so I can write this as a minus 1x. I could potentially write it as like a minus x because that 1 isn't necessary, but you can't. But you can also write it with 1, and that's totally fine. So now that is my final answer. I combine all my like terms, and this is what I'm left with. So 11x to the fourth minus 1x. All right, let's go to the next example. And on the next example, instead of adding these two things together, we're subtracting them. So this is a little bit different because when I subtract something inside parentheses, so I'm subtracting this entire thing that's inside parentheses, instead of, a lot of the times we only associate that minus sign with the number in front. So like in this case, the 8, but because we're subtracting the entire thing that's in parentheses, what's going to happen is that all of the numbers inside that second set of parentheses change sign. Because this is the same thing as saying like -1 times all of the stuff in the parentheses. So if I distribute that -1, all that's going to happen is all of the signs are going to switch. So I'm going to rewrite this without any without any parentheses. And the first set of parentheses just stays the same. We didn't do anything to that. But the second set of parentheses, all of the signs are going to switch. So the +8 is going to turn to a -8. The positive 6x squared is going to turn to a negative 6x squared. And then the negative 3x squared is going to turn into a positive 3x squared. Because we're just flip-flopping the signs. All right, now that we have that, we can now start with our combining our like terms. So once again, I'm going to start underlining them. We have an x cubed right here, but there's no other x cubeds in here. So we just underline that, we're good. Now let's go to the x squared. So we have an 8x squared right here. We have a negative 6x squared right here, and we have a positive 3x squared right there. So you can have more than one like term. That's totally fine. We're going to add all of those together. And then the last section would be the things without the x's, which are the -6 and -8. Okay, so now that we have all of them underlined, we can combine like terms. I'm going to start with the x cubed because that's my highest exponent, and I want to put my answer in standard form, which means the highest exponent comes first. There's no like term with that x cubed, so we just rewrite x cubed. Then from there, let's go to the x squared. So we have 3 of these. We have an 8x squared, a -6x squared, and a positive 3x squared. When we combine all of them, it would be 8 minus 6 plus 3, which would ultimately give me a 5. So I can write it as a plus 5x squared. And then the last portion are the things without the x's, which is the -6 and -8. So I just do -6 minus 8, which gives me a -14. And now we have everything, all the like terms combined, and my answer's in standard form. So this is my final answer, x cubed plus 5x squared minus 14. All right, let's do another subtraction one. Once again, remember that minus sign is kind of like a -1 right there, right? So we're going to distribute the -1. And when we distribute the -1, all of the signs in the second set of parentheses flip. So I'm just going to rewrite the entire thing, but leave the first set of parentheses as is. And then the second set of the parentheses, we're going to flip-flop the signs. So it's going to turn to a -x⁴, -9, and a positive 2x to the third. Okay, now that we have that all settled up, we're going to underline with our like terms. So I'm going to start with our x squared, but there is no other x squared in here, so that's it. Then let's do the 7x. There's nothing else with just an x in here, so once again, that's just it. We're leaving that there. And then we have something without the x, so -8, but there's also a -9. So those ones do have like terms. And then we have an x⁴, which doesn't have anything. And then we have a 2x cubed. Let me change that. So that's the only x cubed on there, so we just underline it once. Now, this one's a little bit different because you don't have as many like terms, but you still do it the same way. So you want to start with the highest exponent first, which is that -x⁴. Because it doesn't have any like terms, we're just going to rewrite -x⁴. And remember, you have to keep the sign with it. Then we go to x cubed, and that's the 2x cubed, which there's no other like terms with it, so we just say plus 2x cubed. Then we're going to go to x squared. Okay, x squared is the blue underlined, and that one doesn't have like any like terms, so we say plus x squared. We're just rewriting them in a different order at this point. Then we go to the things with just x's, which is the 7x. Again, no like terms, so we just put plus 7x. And then we go to the things without x's, which is the -8 and -9. Those ones do have like terms, so we do -8 minus 9, which gives me a -17. And this is my final answer. So this one's a little bit longer than the other ones, but that's totally fine because we have all of the like terms combined and everything's good. All right, so let's go to this last example. On this last example, we have 3 sets of parentheses. Notice you do the first set minus the second set plus the third set. So remember, when we subtract, it's like that -1 goes in front and we switch the signs inside that set of parentheses. So what's going to happen is we're going to take this second set of parentheses, because of this minus sign, we're going to rewrite them with the flipped sign. So everything that's positive becomes negative, everything that's negative becomes positive. And then everything else stays the same because those are all, like this guy is a plus sign, so we don't have to change anything in the third set of parentheses. And then the first set of parentheses always stays the same. So let's rewrite it first. We've got 7x squared plus 6x cubed minus 2. And then this is where it's going to start to switch. So minus 8 plus 2x cubed minus 7x squared. And then we go back to the original because of the plus sign that's right in front of the third set of parentheses, nothing changes. So you keep everything the same. So it'll be plus 7 minus x cubed minus x squared. Okay, now we're going to just combine some like terms. So let's start with my front number, which is that 7x squared. The other x squareds I see is the negative 7x squared and then the negative x squared. Now let's go to the next one, which is 6x cubed. And the other x cubes I see are 2x cubed and negative x cubed. And then we have things without x's, so negative 2, negative 8, and positive 7. Okay, so now let's combine like terms. We want to start with the highest exponent first, which looks like it's the x cubes. So for the x cubes, we have 6x cubed, 2x cubed, and negative x cubed, which that negative x cubed is like a negative 1x cubed. So 6 plus 2 minus 1 would give me 7, which means that when combining like terms, I'm going to get 7x cubed. Then let's go to the x squared. So on the x squared, we have a 7x squared, negative 7x squared, and then a negative x squared. That negative x squared is like a negative 1x squared. And actually the 7x squared and the negative 7x squared cancel each other out because 7 minus 7 is 0. So we're just left with negative x squared or negative 1x squared. Then the very last step is those red underlines, which are the things without any x's attached to them. So negative 2, negative 8, and positive 7. And we know negative 2 minus 8 plus 7 would give us a negative 3. You can definitely plug that into a calculator, though, to double check. And now we've combined all like terms, and our final answer is 7x cubed minus x squared minus 3. And this is how we add and subtract polynomials.